strike the language that's true, and you want to add in this other language, the proper place for this, as I've said again multiple times, is to put it in the minority views, which will be part of the oversight plan. But for some reason, that doesn't seem to be good enough for the minority.
Will the chairman yield?
Yeah, sure.
What if I told you a single sentence, spoken by the quietest person in the room, ended an entire performance that someone thought they had planned down to the second? One moment of restraint, one folder, and one truth that flipped confidence into pure panic. No one in that packed auditorium was ready for what happened next. People were already restless before the debate even began. Every seat taken, every head tilted forward like they were waiting for a spark. It wasn't a rally or some fancy political showdown. It was just an open town hall where anyone could talk without filters. That alone made the room feel alive. Barron walked in first, tall, polished, moving like the cameras were already focused on him. He had that half grin of someone who thinks they've already won whatever argument might come their way. A few minutes later, Jasmine Crockett slipped inside. No hype, no dramatic entrance. She just walked in with steady confidence, the kind that doesn't need announcing. The people who recognized her exchanged these subtle nods because they knew she never walked into a room unprepared.
Preserving that oath, or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia, but that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, there were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people because you had people that didn't know anything about science.
The discussion moved smoothly at first, but if you looked closely, the tension was quietly stacking itself brick by brick. Barron kept watching Jasmine out of the corner of his eye like he was waiting to pounce at the perfect moment. And then the host opened the floor to talk about identity, second chances, and how society decides who deserves respect. That's all Barron needed. He stood up immediately. He started off calm, polite, almost forgettable. But then his tone shifted, and he angled his voice just enough to make sure the room knew exactly who he meant. It's funny how some people talk about honesty while, well, their looks tell a different story. A cheap shot dressed up as curiosity, a soft racist slice delivered with perfect political manners. The crowd stiffened. Everyone felt it. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't twitch. She didn't offer a single reaction. And somehow, that silence hit harder than any comeback could have. The host tried to smooth it over, but the moment was already unraveling. Something had shifted in the air. A few minutes later, Jasmine finally lifted her eyes and locked onto Barron. The whole room went quiet, like someone had muted the world. She rose slowly. "You're wondering why I haven't said anything. I wanted to hear every word." Barron tried to hold his confident grin, but it was slipping. Jasmine reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed folder. That alone made the audience lean forward. Barron's face changed instantly, still smiling, but his eyes were not. She opened it gently. I keep hearing people talk about evidence, except the moment evidence actually shows up, suddenly nobody can see. She held up the papers. These are verified documents, records someone didn't expect to ever see daylight. Barron swallowed. I didn't search for this out of curiosity. I searched because someone decided to use identity as a weapon, so I came prepared. The room froze. These results confirm something none of us expected, something that rewrites the story you've told about yourself for years. Barron's voice cracked. What are you talking about? I'm not talking. I'm reading. Then she delivered the line that shattered the room. Melania Trump is not your biological mother. Gasps, chairs shifting, hands on mouths. The entire room reacted at once. Barron didn't. He couldn't. All the color drained from his face. He looked like someone had unplugged him from reality. He tried to speak, but his voice kept collapsing on itself. Jasmine didn't raise her voice or smirk. She didn't look proud. She just stood there, holding the truth like a weightless thing. The tests were checked, twice, cross-referenced, confirmed. Before you question anyone else's identity, you might want to understand your own. Barron took a step back, then another, every ounce of swagger gone. She finished with one quiet line. Identity isn't a weapon, but when you try to use it on someone else, you risk cutting yourself. Silence spread across the room. Heavy, real, unavoidable. Barron walked out fast, pale and shaking, avoiding every pair of eyes he used to meet with confidence. Jasmine sat down calmly, like she had simply answered a question. So tell me, who really won that exchange? The one who struck first, or the one who waited, watched, and struck with the truth at the exact second it mattered? You decide. And if you want more powerful stories broken down with clarity, truth, and a little yeet, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with someone who loves political drama that feels like a movie.
And decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to. And people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual. And I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem. This is the problem. That is not infringing upon free speech.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield to the right.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. To be clear, your challenge, I think, was across the aisle, because I think every member on your side of the aisle agrees with the obvious fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the filthy, bloody, imperialistic invasion of Ukraine. And in fact, at the time, Donald Trump as president never denied it. In fact, he praised it. He said it was, quote, an act of genius when Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. So I would hope some of our colleagues would consent to at least that historical point, since we think history is so important. There are people who want to relive that in our oversight report.
And therein lies the problem.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
I'd yield to the chairman.
I just wanted to make a point. We've talked, gentlelady, previous speaker talked about factual information. We've talked about fact-checking. Fact-checking, you know what fact-checking is truly supposed to be in this country? The First Amendment. Not some expert who can sit on and look at posts and tweets and different things and say, oh, that's not factual, take it down. That's not how it works. Fact-checking is the First Amendment. Someone says something stupid, and that happens every day in this Congress. Someone says something crazy. Someone says something that's not quite true, not quite accurate. You know what the fact-check is? Someone says something else, and you have debate. That's what we do in this committee every day. And this is the committee who's supposed to protect that fundamental fact. Real fact-checking is the First Amendment. Our Supreme Court has been clear about that. You don't like certain speech, the best speech for wrong speech is more speech. The best speech for false speech is true speech. That's how it works. You have a debate, and you trust we, the people, to figure it out, not some expert who's going to fact-check every tweet, every post, and we saw this in the Biden administration. We're seeing it in Europe now. We're seeing it in Brazil. That was the first bill we dealt with from the gentleman from California, his good legislation that we all agreed on. We're going to work on and put a good bill on the floor. So that's the key. That's what and we know it happened because, again, we had the guy who runs one of the biggest companies in the world, most successful tech companies in the world, tell us it happened. We had on the third day of the Biden administration an email from the White House to Twitter saying, take down this tweet ASAP. The government telling a business to take down a tweet, and a tweet, ironically, was from RFK Jr., who was going to be running for president against the guy in the White House. So he was saying, take down the speech of my opponent. That's not how it's supposed to work in this country. That's what we're concerned about. That's why it's in our oversight plan. And if you want additional things to look at, again, put them in your viewpoints. We're happy to accept them. We'll take everything Mr. Raskin has said today, everything the gentlelady from Texas has said today. We'll take everything the Democrats said. You want to put all that in your plan? Put it in your plan. That's fine. That's how it works. But no, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. I yield back to the gentleman from California.
I thank the gentleman. And back to the point of